to St Peters Woodlands, of course, there was great teaching and learning going on here. But one of the things I noticed is when it came to that Tier 3 intervention, the small group intervention programs, we had about 40% of our students accessing Tier 3 teaching. And that to me was a little bit of a flag that perhaps our Tier 1 teaching, which is your classroom teaching, wasn't quite what it needed to be when we have so many students needing to access additional help. So really it was then how can we embed the science of reading into our schools so it's consistent, so it's low variance, so it's delivered with fidelity. And part of that was making a key appointment of having a literacy coach who works alongside the teachers to ensure that that's happening and rolling out in classrooms.
So the science of reading is not a program. The science reading is a vast body of research that has come from lots of different disciplines that inform us around the best way children learn. How they learn to read, how they learn to write, how they learn to spell, keys into all parts of learning around how the brain learns. So previously we would have subscribed more to a whole language balanced literacy approach to teaching reading and literacy. A structured literacy approach differs because the teaching is very tight. We have scope and sequences where we're working from simple skills through to more complex skills that are built upon. It ensures that we don't have gaps or holes in our learning, so we can ensure that children are getting the instruction that they need at the developmental times that children need to be attaining those skills and that knowledge. So the advantages for teachers in using a structured literacy approach and having a low variance curriculum is that it breaks their literacy blocks down for them really nicely to know the things that firstly they need to include. So have they included phonology? Have they included morphology? Have they got the vocabulary piece in there? Are they teaching fluency as part of that instruction? Are they making the links between reading and spelling and then keying that into writing? Are they explicitly teaching syntax and teaching children how words work within sentences? So having scope and sequences are a big part of it, ensuring that we are teaching all the elements within a structured literacy approach are part of it, but also a big part is the actual delivery of the lesson. So by using instructional routines in the classroom, it reduces the cognitive load for the children. There's no surprises. They know what's happening next. They can focus on the learning rather than the process of having to learn it. But it also reduces cognitive load for teachers because they're not having to learn a new way of doing something. Again, it's just the content that is changing in and out. So that's been a huge win for our teachers in terms of reducing their cognitive load, but also having the low variance resources that are already created, already sitting there. They can spend their time focusing on the teaching rather than the making.
When I didn't understand how to drop the E, Mrs. Gilding helps me. She found out the word cracker helped me a lot.
Well, hello everyone, I'm Bill.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Sally.
And we are the developers of the word cracker, which started out with Sally and I developing the magnet board behind us. Mm-hmm. And then the very smart chap called Michael Shanahan has come on board and helped us develop the online word cracker, which is being used all over the place in classrooms for Tier 1 instruction. Sally, it started with you.
Yes, it did. I suppose I was doing a study on morphology through another course in the UK some years ago. And we really started discussing how this knowledge of morphemes is so important to literacy development, as well as all the other things, of course. And so, this idea of pulling things apart and putting them together just made sense to have a visual with our students. Yeah. So to have that cracker there where you could actually physically show where a boundary stops and starts with a word made it easier.
Yeah, I think that's really important because particularly kids living with learning difficulties really don't naturally see those morphemic or even the syllable boundaries in words. And I think the idea of having both the cracker, which kind of physically and visually separates them, but also the idea that they sit on their own little tiles, so they are little individual units of meaning. And to some extent, yes, we want to teach explicitly, but to some extent, even just that exposure, even just having them sitting there, always visible, always on their own, on that little tile, really helps that mapping of these as recognisable little chunks in words.
Yeah, it just doesn't come easily to our students, does it? You know, they just see word as a block, you know.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so we need to find every strategy we can to get them looking at little chunks, which we refer to as morphemes.
And you mentioned, Michael, the syllable boundaries. Like we mentioned, part of a specific learning difficulty, well, the phonological disorder is always in there, and that makes it hard for kids to actually separate words into sound units called syllables. But syllables and morphemes often match up. So anything that, helps students get these right away from one another is extremely helpful.
I like the word cracker because it helps me physically see how to put all the prefixes, base words and suffixes together. It also helps me understand the meaning of words, but also the meaning of all the parts in a word.
When I was first starting to use the word cracker, it really showed me really clearly about what I was teaching and how to teach. It's all there. It takes my cognitive load out because I can just bring it down, click, it sort of guides me along the way. And as you do it more and more, you become, I guess, more confident, and then I can bring in my own words, and it's got that setting as well. But they're great, and I think the sign that comes up of beware and just add, the students really love that. Again, it's that really nice visual element.
The word cracker helps me make bigger words because it helps me to add prefixes and suffixes to make words bigger, like reattaching. It also helps me understand the meaning of words when I know different prefixes and suffixes.
They love it. They're always really excited when they get the word cracker whiteboards. They've been great. The students love them because visually they can see the word cracker there. So it's really good. They can see what I'm doing up on the board, and then straight away they can apply it on their whiteboards. And it's really good because I guess it gives them the opportunity, they can make a mistake, and it doesn't matter, they can just rub it out, do a little self-correction. They can show me, it's really easy for me to get a quick little check overview. Are we getting the doubling rule, the dropping the E? If not, then we can sort of go back and do some reteaching of it.
Using the word cracker, Mrs. Gilding helped me to understand about using this rule for my spelling. It has also helped me learn more words that are bigger words.
So schools who are into this kind of broad area they call the science of reading or the science of learning have understood or are understanding the importance of teaching literacy in a really structured way. And usually the first hill or hump for teachers to get over knowledge-wise is stuff about how you teach phonics in a synthetic and structured way, in a really tight way. And with that comes obviously grapheme phoneme correspondence, getting your head around all the different ways that sounds in our, or speech sounds in our language are spelled. But very quickly, this second layer is apparent. As soon as students are putting an S on the end of a noun like cat to make cats, we need to start making kids aware of this other structure of words, not just the sound structure, but the morphemic structure.
If a base word ends in C and the suffix begins with a vowel, you got to double the final consonant. Yeah, wow.
So we always do like a review, sort of, I guess it's tuning into what the students have already learned, getting access to that long-term memory so we can bring it up, and then we're kind of linking it to the new learning that's going to come. We always do a learning intention, so the students are really clear about what they're going to be learning, and it's nice for them to sort of turn and talk with each other just to sort of clarify that. And also pretty much saying at the end of the lesson what the aim is, so at the end of the lesson they sort of know what they're working towards. Then we do, so after we've done our daily review, I'll then do I guess I'll lead for a little while, so it's like the I do, and they're watching and tracking along with me. Then it's a we do, so we do it as a class together, so they get that practice of applying it. And it's also a really good chance for me to sort of really check, are they getting it before I send them off for their final stage, which is the they do, and then we sort of circle back around to come back and reflect on what we've learned from the day. EDI and fun can actually go together really well. So they've got those nice little routines, and I find it really engages them, kind of helps them stick in their long-term memory, just keeps us all really awake and alert to what's happening, and yeah, they love it.
Re means do again, and ing means happening now.
For children with intervention who really find it difficult to decode, having a prop, a tool which will pull words apart or put them together makes it a much more understandable concept for them.
That's right, because in a structured synthetic phonics program, which is entirely necessary, but we do spend a lot of time on pulling words apart into sounds and then matching or mapping letters or groups of letters onto those sounds. And that's incredibly important, and you can't move kids on without it, but it's only part of the picture because our language isn't a completely regular alphabet. We have these other things called morphemes which come into the picture, making English what they call a morphophonemic language.
Yeah, and not a lot of structured synthetic phonic programs pay a lot of attention to morphology. And that's fine, because in those early stages you have to learn the code.
You need the code.
You have to learn that this letter or this combination of letters make these sounds. You need to learn those kind of basic spelling rules. But if you really want to then extend your knowledge of English and learn the more difficult spelling stuff and increase your vocabulary and your comprehension, then you have to have morphology, because morphology is how our language works.
So we run the Playberry Multisensory Literacy Intervention program here at SPW. We have a very highly trained ESO who facilitates that program, and she has incorporated WordCracker into her teaching. She's finding it very, very beneficial. Myself, I run Spelling Through Morphographs as our Tier 2 spelling intervention, and I have utilised quite a lot of the elements of it to enhance the program that I'm teaching and really make it more of a multi-sensory experience for the children to help them expand their vocabulary. Those elements I'm finding really helpful.
Prefix un means not. Prefix dis means not. All the actions. Prefix re means again. Suffix ing means happening now. It's spelt ing.
We know that we would also like to improve our numeracy results, but what we're noticing is just by, I guess, that absolute increase in the quality of our classroom teaching using EDI principles, that it's naturally starting to track upwards as well. So I would say that it's incredible when you just focus on literacy and you focus on that explicit direct instruction in class, you will see a natural flow-on effect to other subject areas, which is really exciting. We have 96% of our Year 1s are performing at or above benchmark, and that is just such an incredible, tangible result for us to celebrate.
I think the WordCracker should be used around the world so people can learn about prefixes, suffixes and base words, so they can learn new sorts of words and some new strategies for spelling.